I'm excited to have with me Canadian Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter David Clayton-Thomas, and he's here today to talk about his passion for music, when it all began, and his new album, Say Something, and what's next for him. Welcome.
Thanks, Christine, but you got to get it right. It's Say Something with an apostrophe.
Say Something with apostrophe. Yes. I really like the title of your album, and let's start when it began for you.
Well, I'm writing all the time, mostly lyric ideas, and sometimes a few little chord changes and stuff. And when I have enough stuff together, I call in the musicians, my friends, and we start laying it out. And somewhere in the process, one of the guys said to me, "Boy, this album really says something." I said, we got a title. There we go.
Yes.
And we pretty much stuck to that for the rest of the album. Every song had to be relevant and current and talking about the things that are happening today.
Mm-hmm. And it's an issue album. And so how has the feedback been like?
Amazing. I can't believe it. I don't know whether it's because everybody's locked in. It's got nowhere to go right now, but
yes.
I've gotten a dozen or more in the first few days. Great reviews. I think the writers got it.
Oh, wow. And
we're just thrilled with the response.
But how does it make you feel like, you are, there's many issues like gun violence, and tell us about that, like, the issues that are in the album.
Well, one of the songs, of course, is called Never Again. And it occurred to me that the United States could use a little talking to, especially since we don't have mass shootings every 3 days here in Canada. And so, addressing that issue, I asked the Americans, what is it? Well, you say it's violent movies? No, not that. We have violent movies here too. Video games? No, not that. Crazy people? No, we got crazy people too. What could be the difference? Well, everybody is now walking around with an AR-15 in Canada. And the kids in Parkland got it. And I just was so inspired by those kids and the bravery and the way they stood up to the system. And these were 16, 17-year-old kids, who, by the way, will be voting this year.
Yes. Yes.
And so I wrote the song. Now, here's an ironic little side. We put it out. The record company thought it was so powerful that it should be out as a single right away. So we put together a little video, put it out, and Facebook promptly banned it.
Oh.
They forbid it, no advertising. And when we asked them why, they said it's too political. It violates our standards. It's too political. So we went back to the drawing board, and the record company came out with the Circus, which, by the way, is 10 times more political than that one. But somehow or another, a song suggesting you shouldn't go around shooting people is too political. The thinking about it. I wonder if the NRA, National Rifle Association, has got any ads on Facebook. And sure enough, they do. As a matter of fact, they spend millions of dollars a year in ads on Facebook. Could that be the reason why the song was banned? Maybe so, huh?
Yeah, that's wow. And like with the circus, tell us about that. Like, you know, how that, because everything's a circus, right? That's what the whole, you know, inspiration for your writing, right?
That particular song, yeah. I mean, you can't watch what's happened, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. Can't watch what's happening, what's pouring off your television screen every day without realizing that it is a complete absurd circus going on there. And this is directed mostly, I think, to the States because their political system in the U.S. is definitely more colorful than ours.
Yes. And the video is, you know, I've watched the video and it's very, you know, it's entertaining, but it's reality, right?
Yeah, the record company did that. I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay.
The president pays off a porn star while the senator steals a kiss. Who could invent such a story? You just can't make up stuff like this. Who could produce such a movie? Even Hollywood can't compare. It's a Barnum and Bailey production. A high wire act in the air. Oh, welcome my friends to the circus. Get your tickets, come on in. Sit back in your seat, you're in for a treat. The circus is about to begin. Well, the ringmaster makes his announcement and the pipe organ strikes up a tune. Jugglers and clowns, their acrobats, confetti and colored balloons. The congressman does a backflip while the governor plays to the crowd. It's a three-ring extravaganza. Almost anything is allowed. Welcome, my friends, to the circus. Take your places, if you please. Forget all your cares, fly through the air with the man on the flying trapeze. Oh, welcome, my friends, to the circus. Get your tickets, come on in. Sit back in your seat, you're in for a treat. The circus is about to begin. Come on in, my friends. You won't believe your eyes. What'll they think of next?
So, David, tell us about now with COVID-19. You are writing songs right now. Like, how are you dealing with it?
Well, I'm home. Just me and my little schnauzer.
Yes.
And we get out to walk. I happen to live right on the waterfront in Toronto, so we've got a big boardwalk about a mile long behind our place, and I get out to walk every day, 3 times a day. Mm-hmm. Nice thing about having a dog, they have to go out 3 times a day, so it gets you out 3 times a day. But I've got a nice new car sitting downstairs that I haven't driven in 2 weeks because there's no place to really go. Mm-hmm. All the clubs are closed. All the places I normally would go are shut down.
Yes.
And the city's like a ghost town. Mm-hmm. A good time to go out for a drive, actually. There's no traffic out there.
Yes, yes, and gas is cheap too, right? It's
Hey, good point.
you know, but now's the time to, I guess, time for reflecting and I want to turn to the song God's Country. Tell us about that.
Thank you. It's not the most overt song on the album, but it's certainly one of my favorites. Mm. Well, I lived in New York City for almost 40 years, and I love New York. It just breaks my heart to see what's going on there now. And I have so many friends and neighbors from New York, and they're suffering. Mm. But all that time, I never gave up my Canadian passport. I'm a third-generation Canuck, and very proud of it. And I always wanted to write a song about it. I wrote the title song to the Evergreens a few years ago, which was kind of an attempt to say what a wonderful country this is. But on this one, I pulled out all the stops. I had a set of lyrics written, and my friend George Kohler came over one day, and he was on his way to Europe, actually. He was touring with Holly Cole. And I said, George, take these lyrics with you. Let's see, see what you come up with. And he read them, and he got a tear in his eye right away. And he said, okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks. And he took the lyrics to Europe with him. And by the time it came back, I sang the melody roughly in the air, and he recorded it on his cell phone and took it to Europe with him. And when he came back, he had the composition finished. And that was time for me to get a tear in my eye when I heard what he had come up with. He's truly a magical musician. He's really a great, great friend. Mm. And we put our heads together and we came up with that. And I tried to just hit on the magnificent things in this country, not just the landscape. Of course, it says the mountains of Alberta and the redwoods of BC, since you're in Vancouver. But it also talks about the Group of Seven and the music at Massey Hall. And it talks about our fathers and what a proud country we are and how basically undefeatable we are. And I think I succeeded. Mm. Before we released the album, I went and did a concert down in Hamilton. And I said to the guys in the band, because we had just recorded the song, maybe 2 days before. It had never even been heard yet. It wasn't even mixed yet. And I said, let's try this as an encore tonight. And they said, okay. Everybody knew it. It was the same guys in my band that were in the studio, so everybody knew it. By the second time the chorus came around, there were 2,000 people standing, tears rolling down their cheeks with their hands in the air, and they were singing along with it. I thought to myself, my God, they're singing along with a song they've never heard before.
Wow.
That nobody's ever heard. I think we've got something here. Wow. And I'm very proud of that one.
Let's talk about your passion when it started. You were the lead vocalist of the American band Bloodsweat&Tears. Tell us when it all began for you.
New York Bloodsweat&Tears was a New York band, quintessential New York band. Mm-hmm. I went to New York in the mid to late 60s, about 66, 67, because in those years there was no music industry in Canada. It simply did not exist. Everything was coming from the States. And so Canadian artists like myself and Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, some of them like Joni and Neil went to L.A. I went to New York because I was always drawn to the jazz musicians, and then that was a center for jazz. And basically went down there and starved for about 2 years with all the other starving musicians. But I was starving in the basket houses down there. Basket houses in Greenwich Village are places where you play a couple of tunes and pass the basket. But I was in good company. I was doing it alongside of people like Jimi Hendrix and James Taylor and Carole King, and we were all just out-of-work musicians in those days. Anyway, ran into a few guys down there, and they had a band they were starting up, and I would have loved to have been in it when they started it, but they started it up, and they had a singer, and the singer basically owned the recording contract, so he was going to be the singer. His name was Al Cooper, and they went in the studio and recorded the album. I knew all the guys. I'd seen them playing. I'd played with a bunch of them in different clubs around the village, and about a year later, the drummer let me know that, hey, Al Cooper has left, and we've got like 4 guys left out of the original 9-piece band, but we still got the recording contract, so would you like to come down and sing with the band? I said, okay, no problem. I knew all these guys anyway. I knew the band with Randy Brecker and Bobby Colomby and Jimmy Fielder and guys like that had to be a killer band. And we had one rehearsal, and that was it. The rest is, as they say, is history.
Wow. And, tell us, going back to the 60s, tell us about the song Brainwashed. And I understand that went to #1 in Canada. Can you tell us about that?
I guess, people are kind of surprised that this new album is so politically motivated, or it deals with social issues. But I've always been doing that. Going back to Brainwashed, which was banned in the United States because it was anti-Vietnam War, and it was a little ahead of its time. In Canada here, we never did like that war. And it went to #1 in Canada for something like 16 weeks or something. We could never get it released in the States. Nevertheless, that's nothing new to me. And I think I owe a lot to that, to my early Dylan influences. Dylan was highly political in his early recordings, his early songs, and it just really struck a chord with me. And then, of course, a few years later, the Beatles came along. Lennon and McCartney got very political with their songs, too. So, there was an era in the 60s, if you remember the 60s. You remember, somebody once said, if you remember the 60s, you weren't there. But music lived basically in New York City. The whole music was centered in New York City. And it was extremely political. And it led to Woodstock, and it led to stopping a war. It was a very powerful movement. And then towards, I guess, the late 70s, the music business packed up and moved out to L.A. And music became a background track for dance videos. And all the potency, all the power went out of it. It came back a little bit with rap music. Rap music is socially very conscious and makes a very powerful statement. But rock and roll, pop music, basically moved away from social commentary. So maybe now, in these times that we live in, maybe now it's time for it to come back, huh?
Wow. And you have a book too, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I had some surgery a few years ago that left me housebound for a little while. And my daughter, who at that time was living with me, going to college here at Humber College in Toronto, and she said, Dad, you should write a book. So I started just making little notes and jotting things down, and she kind of became my unofficial editor because she was majoring in writing for television and TV and movies. Screenwriting. And she helped me with it. We put it together, and lo and behold, Penguin Press, one of the biggest publishers in the world, got a hold of it, a draft of it, picked it up. At that point, it was about 150 pages long, and they contacted me and said, look, if you can make this 300 pages, we'll publish it. So, okay. So I went back to the laptop and doubled the length of it, and it came out in 2010. 2010 it came out, and it's been selling very well ever since.
That's wonderful. So, and people can get a copy of the book online, of course, and but that's great. And David, I want to talk about your work that you do with Peace Builders. Yeah. So I want to hear more, like how it started for you and where it's going, and what kind of events are going to happen, like, or have they been changed or what have you because of COVID-19. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, that's hurt a lot of our events, of course. You know, a lot of our gatherings and fundraisers and stuff have had to be postponed. Let me tell you about Peace Builders. I started off 15-year-old kid. I was pretty badly abused at home by my father. By 14, 15, I was running away from home, sleeping in parked cars. And what they did with 15-year-old kids when they found them on the street in those years, this was the mid to late 50s, they sent them off to reformatories. Now, most kids that get sent off to reformatories, the recidivism rate is just obscene. They spend the rest of their lives in the system. I managed to break that cycle by the sheer luck of finding out that I could play music and finding a different direction. So I didn't give it too much thought. I was away in New York, and I didn't give too much thought for the juvenile justice system up here until I came back 2004, and I moved permanently back to Toronto. And the Ashley Smith case came in the newspapers. I read it one day, and it just broke my heart. Here was a little 16-year-old girl who hung herself in prison. And of course I said to and it became a national scandal, as you know. And I said, my God, what was a 16-year-old kid doing in prison anyway? What was she doing in solitary confinement? In this beautiful country, Canada the Good, we're putting 16-year-old kids in solitary confinement? And I wrote an op-ed. I wrote a letter to the Globe and Mail. And they published it, and it went viral. It got like 1,800 replies in the first day. And one of those replies was from a lady by the name of Eva Marshevsky. Eva is one of the top attorneys in the country, and her husband is one of the top litigators in the country. And she's on first-name basis with parliamentarians, and the Governor General of Ontario is her best friend, and she's very well connected. And she told me about her organization, Peace Builders. What they do is they have arranged it so that the magistrates now, rather than send a 15-year-old, 16-year-old off to reformatory, where good chance they're lost forever, they divert them to Peace Builders. And Peace Builders intervenes with counseling, professional psychologists, doctors, attorneys, all sorts of wonderful people that divert the kid away. Now, I mentioned earlier recidivism. A kid who gets sent to reformatory by age 16 has an 80% chance of spending the rest of his life in and out of reformatories. Peace Builders has a 95% success rate. Kids that were diverted through this Peace Builders process, these kids go back to school. They never reoffend again. So it's been very, very successful. And it's become quite a passion with me over the last decade or so. We do fundraisers for them all the time. As a matter of fact, we did a big fundraiser at Kerner Hall here in Toronto last November, raised a lot of money for the cause and raised a lot of awareness. And one of the songs on the album, called The System, was written for Peace Builders. And it says so on the album. It was written for them. So it's become their theme. So all of their public awareness spots and whatnot now are running that song behind their spots.
And, you know, if people want more information, they can go on the website and, you know, help or donate money.
Oh, yeah. Peace Builders is very easy to find. It's a very big, very effective organization, and it has changed the juvenile justice system up here. One of the things that it accomplished several years ago, following the Ashley Smith situation, was that it is not legal anymore to keep kids in solitary confinement in Canada. We managed to get that turned over.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what is next for you?
I don't know.
It's
I don't know what tomorrow brings at this
yes,
point.
Yes.
You know, we had a bunch of. This was supposed to be a crazy busy week for me. But the album came out on the 20th, and the week after the release, we had a live radio concert at Jazz FM. We had a launch party at the Bistro here in Toronto, and we had 3 concerts booked for this week around the Toronto, the GTA area. And of course, they're all gone. So I'm just sitting at home wondering where I'm going to get my next grocery order from.
Yes. Well, in writing too, like you'll be, doing your passion for writing, right? That you can write songs. But yeah, I mean, it's a time of change.
If you came here looking for justice, just us is all you'll find. Welcome to the system where the wheels of justice grind. The system is relentless. The cycle never ends. It's the same kids getting arrested over and over again. Oh, the system of justice is broken. It's way beyond repair. For kids caught up in the system, justice just ain't fair. The system is working against them, and Lady Justice is blind. Lock 'em up and forget 'em.